Well, I've done a lot of videos talking about the analyst work that goes into DBM, but obviously there's another big component that goes into it. Coding. And as a human, I make coding mistakes. In the past, we didn't have the tools we have today, but one thing that's been going on behind the scenes, going into War Within, is there's been a significant amount of retooling to prevent errors going forward, thanks to several extensions and components that have come together, such as the Lua language server, LuaLS. This extension allows you to have robust error checking that goes well beyond just basic, oh, you typed FI instead of IF for if, you know, and it's like general like error, like Lua errors you get in game when an actual error pops up. Those aren't the only errors you can have on a mod. Those are just the easiest to detect. You know, we've had detection of that for years. But this extension takes it many magnitudes further, but it's not just this extension alone. It's also augmented by this extension made by Github. If I'm saying his name wrong, let me know. Which adds WoW-specific API information to the language server extension so that it can further refine the code checking in the project. But then, on top of that, Paul Emmerich, the original author of DBM back in the old days, has been active on the project again recently, and he wrote this, which is yet a third layer on top of the other two that trains the language server to recognize DBM-specific code and needs, where it can autofill or detect errors like never before in the code. And then behind Paul, I've been going in there and training it, you know. The more you document it, the better. Like, I'll go into here. I mouse over any function, and it will give my annotated notes that I've added in there, and documentation how the function works. Like, register combat. I mouse over that. Immediately it tells me all the different things I can put in there and what they mean, because it understands all the DBM information. And this one's using a combat detection method, which, as you read here, is this boss started by encounter start, instance encounter, unit health, or player regen, whichever event happens first. Let's say I make a typo and I put combat with 2 T's. Now, the old Lua check would not catch this error, but the Lua language server is now going, error. This does not match any defined information that's in the LuaLS. Fix it. Remove the extra T. Now it knows it's fixed. Now obviously you can still error and put in the wrong type, but that's less likely to happen. Usually most errors are caused by typos. And there have been more errors that have been common. Like, say for example, this is a count warning. Call of the swarm. So when it's called, it needs to be called with the count, swarm count. Oftentimes in the past, you know, an easy mistake that happened is this. I put this, but I forgot to put the count in there. Now it's underlined and telling me something's wrong. And it's showing in the IDE something is wrong here. And I look at it. This function is expecting 2 args, but only got 1. Now 1 being the spell name, which is, you don't actually put it in, it's automatically inserted, but the second arg is the count, it knows it's missing. The count is back in there, now it's working correctly. And in fact, you can see it in the commit messages here. I put in some other background checking, like this push just went out yesterday. I fixed these bugs yesterday. And these are bosses that have been out for many months, and nobody caught these errors that the count was missing from these 3 warnings. So like, from the user perspective, you're not going to know it's broken. You're just going to see, Razakath has cast Ball Lightning. Razakath has cast Ball Lightning. Now what it's supposed to say is Razakath has cast Ball Lightning 1, Ball Lightning 2, Ball Lightning 3. It wasn't doing that because the count was missing. And with this more robust error checking on the back end, now, more than ever, DBM is going to be auto-detecting and fixing code errors in the back end. And let me tell you, this Lua check isn't just local. Like, It's in my IDE, so I see it before I push it. But let's say someone does a pull request, you know, with a different IDE and doesn't have the built-in language server. The LuaLS check runs right here on GitHub as well. I still don't know if it's GitHub or GitHub, so I call it both. And it has to pass before a PR is pushed. I got a couple PRs now, but anyways. With all these robust checks that weren't there before, but they are there going into War Within, I'm hoping to catch a lot more errors and mistakes like this along the way, as well as just making coding mods quicker, more streamlined in general. And not just for me, but for any contributors out there, like, who might not know. They might look at this code and be like, is tanking API? Well, how does it work? That's how it works. It's all internally documented in the language server, so like every function is known, and the IDE can display it. It displays all the args, the expected format, you know, string, boolean, and what each arg actually does. Oops, I didn't mean to scroll off it. Like, it shows what they all are for, and how, like, what they're used for, so you know what this stuff actually means. Even the voice pack support, you don't know what sounds that you can use? Here they are. All the sounds that are supported by voice packs, right at your fingertips. And you can auto-fill in and everything. I've gone through every function in DBM in its entirety and thoroughly documented it. And where is it documented? It's actually documented in core. Like, if I click this and go to where it is, here's the function in core, and above it, this is the language server documentation. You know, I entered all this in to train it, so it's fully documented going forward. And the documentation is not just documentation, it's also part of the air training code. Like, when I put this in, now it will check for mistakes. Like, it knows this is supposed to be a string. Player name is a string. Enemy unit ID is a string. So if I do something stupid like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like, what the fuck is this? This is not a string. You put a number in here. Can't match. Not right. It's expecting a string. Now, there's obviously, I can obviously make it even more in-depth. I can actually code this to only recognize certain unit IDs. I haven't done that yet, but I probably will at some point. So if I put, like, fuckhead, technically that's still allowed, because it doesn't recognize it by what it is yet. I have to train it specifically to you have to specifically build tables if you want to only recognize valid strings. Like this, if I put fuckhead, it knows it's wrong, because this has already been trained with a complete table. It will only accept these, period. Anything that doesn't match something in this table will show an error. So I'm not completely done. It's still a process where I'm continuing to train it and optimize it so it makes it more and more impossible for human error to break boss mods. Because there's nothing more frustrating than to put hours into the analyst work, which you've seen in my last 3 videos, and have the timers perfect, have everything perfect, and then to find out that the mod itself wasn't perfect for 3 weeks, 4 weeks before someone reported a bug in Discord and said, hey, by the way, your timers are wrong. I'm like, that's impossible. I've put hours into analyst work. I know my timers should be right, and I'll look at the code, and it'll be some stupid-ass typo that broke the whole mod for 3 weeks, and it's embarrassing because people will think, you know, this mod is not accurate, and I'm thinking it's the most accurate mod out there. So what I'm trying to do is minimize human mistakes that cause inaccuracies or errors in boss mods, because I think I'm one of the best analysts out there, but I will tell you first and foremost, I am not one of the best coders out there. Now, Paul's amazing, and I'm glad he's come back to help me and improve all this tooling, because all this tooling is going to go a long way in making some of the best boss mods yet. The War Within, I'm like well ahead in the development and preparation thanks to some of these tools, and I can't wait till you see some of the next tools I'm going to show in another video. We have a, like, I'm going to tell you what it is, but I'm not going to show it yet because right now there's actually a bug in the Mac client where it crashes all the time. Like, it literally just crashes if you push any hotkey at all. You push Shift key, crash. You push Control, crash. You push Alt, crash. Because right now, Alt keys break the game, and it's really, really hard to play World of Warcraft without pushing an Alt key. Like, I was actually trying to put those our new tool tech in this video, and I kept crashing WoW anyway, because it's just a force of habit. Like, I hit Shift just to, like, type something. It's like, oop, crashed. How dare you push a modifier key? So it's like, you know what? I'll wait for them to fix the bug in next week's build and do that video. What the tool is, before I ramble too much, we now have the technology to emulate a boss pull. That's right, DBM lets you feed any log, LFR, normal, mythic, heroic, of a boss pull into our mod, and it will emulate the entire boss fight as if you pulled it for real. This is a feature people have been asking for a long time. Now, right now, it's only a dev tool for actually testing the mods, because let me tell you, one of the things about coding in the best mod imaginable is being able to test it has always been a pain in the ass, because you have to actually go and do the fight. Well, not anymore. I don't have to pull the boss at all. I can sit in Stormwind and clear the entire raid on heroic in 5 seconds. Because our tech even supports time warping, where we can speed up or slow down the boss as much as we want. So I could do a 3-hour raid clear in seconds, and it will detect all the errors in the mods automatically and dump an output where it will say, this should have happened, but this happened instead. Or I can put it at ×1 and run around Stormwind pretending like I'm doing the fight in real time. That's going to be the tech that users will like of this. You know, imagine you're a Mythic progression guild, and you want to, like, do a dry run practice of Farak without pulling the boss. You can literally hit a button and replay an entire pull of the fight as if it's happening in real time. Every timer, every alert, right there on your screen as if it's happening in real time. And that's going to be so amazing to actually get to a user front end too. I eventually plan to have like a button in each boss mod, or I'm actually probably more a drop down, because you're going to have to choose a difficulty, where you could say, let me play this fight on Mythic or Heroic or whatever. But anyways, a demo for that feature will come in the next beta build, when I can actually run a demo without crashing out due to the Mac client being unstable. It's unfortunate it wasn't ready this week. But anyway, I'm excited about a lot of the stuff that's going into the tooling, because crazy amount of work is going into the tooling to make boss mods near fail-proof. Now, there's still possibility of human error, but that's why I continue to iterate, like, anywhere I can. Like, any function I see that's not documented, I try to go behind and thoroughly put it in. Like, even stuff like anti-spam, I click it. Well, it went to that mapping. Let's go to this one. Here it is. It's documented. What it's expecting, comments about it, so that when you look at the function, it tells you how to use it. I'm hoping this helps too with contributors that sometimes contribute to DBM and don't know everything as well as I do, because not everyone's been using these functions for 2 decades almost. Some people who want to contribute look at it and be like, you know what, never mind, there's too much to know here. But with these tools, like, once you get them set up, like it says here, you can't memorize all this like in one day, but now you don't have to. The tooling will do it for you, and it will prevent you from screwing up in as many cases as possible. And that's the tooling that goes behind DBM. There's a lot more to it, but like, that's like the basic of it. And it's thanks to all the advancements, really, of 3 people. Sumniko, if I'm saying that right, for the language server, Keitho for the WoW API extension to it, and Paul for designing the framework that allows me to teach it everything it needs to know about DBM itself. And you can see Github Co-pilot is in here too. That's also been very fun to get used to working. It's not always accurate, but it's kind of is. Like this. Most of this was typed by Copilot. Because it just knows what the goal is here. Maybe I can show you, let's say these aren't in the mod yet. Okay. What's next, Copilot? Venomous Rain? Okay, autofill. What's next, Copilot? Web Bomb? Okay, autofill. What's next, Copilot? Skittering Leap? Okay. Now let's see if that's accurate. What was there before? The order doesn't matter. Copilot actually did Web Bomb before Skittering Leap, but it really doesn't matter. But the point is, it did insert that this is still valid as this was. And Copilot knew what was missing. I'm just gonna put it back the way it was. Copilot was able to autofill it in part because of how thorough the language servers filled in. Like, that's the one thing about the AI, is all the language server stuff that I'm putting in, like defining what functions do, how they work, that also trains the AI, so it knows how the stuff works too. Like, the AI can read, it actually reads comments, annotation, and that's very useful. Like, when I was talking about the spell queuing the other day, that how I put comments above it, like I explained like the ICDs, and I put like thorough notes in there. The AI actually reads those notes, so that when I was typing in the code, it was auto-filling in, but because it knew what my intent would be already, because it was able to parse through the language of my notes and go, so this is what you want to do. Okay, I'll code that for you. Now, obviously, it's not perfect. You always have to human review AI afterwards because it will fuck it up too. Sometimes in hilarious ways. Like, sometimes you'll be like amazed at what it can figure out. Other times you'll be like, what the fuck are you thinking? This makes no sense. It writes gibberish. So it helps speed things up sometimes. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I'll type it myself. But yeah, technology is making coding fun and quicker, and I'm happy for that, because after you spend hours doing analyst work, sometimes you want to just get through the coding already and get going and get done. And this video is probably not that interesting to a lot of you, because a lot of you, you're more interested in how WoW works, but the coding part is not as exciting. So I have a feeling this video is going to do way poorer than the last three. But nonetheless, you know, it's part of the process, so I figured I should do it anyway. Because maybe some coders will think it's cool, and maybe and others are going to go, okay, it's time to, like, get my project running on LuaLS, like, yesterday. Because it's, like, huge in terms of code quality and error checking. You know, you want to be able to catch the errors up front and not wait for users to report later. Because let me tell you about user reporting. Oftentimes, users don't know something is broken. Like the examples I gave here, well, here. The count was missing from this warning. Users wouldn't know that's a bug. I know it's a bug, but users don't know it's a bug. They just think maybe they just didn't put a count on the warning. But I did put a count on the warning, all three of these. It just wasn't working for 6 months, 12 months, you know, 18 months, because it's like, I think it's 3 different tiers here. And that annoys me to no end. When I find bugs like that, and I know that the mod was supposed to have a count, it's frustrating, because it's like, I aim for perfection, and sometimes it's just, stuff like this is easy to miss. If timers being incorrect is easier for users to notice, but the users don't even always report that. There was a bug on console where one timer, I think it was a charge timer, was routinely like 5 seconds off. But I had done deep analysis of that fight. Literally, my last video about that on that fight was about that analysis. And it was like, I put such thorough analysis to make those timers perfect. So when a user came in a few weeks when the fight's been out and says, this timer is just consistently off by 5 seconds, I had to dig into the code and be like, why? The code should be working. And I eventually found the cause of the code, and the cause of the problem, and it was using greater than instead of less than. Or it might have been the other way around, using less than instead of greater than. It was a code check that was saying, if the specials are soon, do this, else do that. And it was backwards. So it was executing the code path where it started like a 26-second timer instead of a 20-second timer. So that was what was causing it to be 6 seconds off for weeks. The intent was there. The analysis work was right. I didn't have the wrong timers. I had the wrong code. So it wasn't running the right timers at the right time. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is to find those kind of mistakes after the fact, which is why I've put so much time into retooling things. Now that specific example sadly wouldn't be caught by these tools. Like there's no real easy way to check a logic check being reversed. So if you still see something wrong as a user, I still encourage you constantly report, report, report. Don't assume the timers are wrong. Assume something's wrong with the code. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not that I have the wrong timers, it's that I fucked up somewhere in the code. And I want to know about that right away, because I need to catch that faster. That's one of the reasons I returned back to raiding, and that has helped too. I started running Mythic Plus and raids again last season. I didn't do raids or Mythic Plus in Season 1 or Season 2. So more errors were found in those mods by users. In Season 3, I was raiding and doing Mythic Plus because I'm always watching for mistakes. In fact, there's another feature in DBM that many people don't know about. It's a debug mode. It's built in. If you do /dbm debug and enable it, debug mode will detect errors too. Like, it will automatically detect when a timer is wrong. Like, it'll print it in chat and make a ding sound. Like, if you ever watch me on Twitch and hear ding, like it goes like a cash register ding play during a fight, it means the debug code caught something wrong with the timer. And usually it's something minute, like I had that code extremely strict. Like, it will report if a timer's off by 0.1 second. 0.1. Like, a timer starts with like 3.2, and it'll play an error saying timer refreshed before expired, off by 1 second, which means the 3.2 timer is wrong. It should be 3.1. And I still fix it because I still consider that a bug. So if you're a masochist almost, enable debug mode, and you might start hearing some dings going off in the fight, you could help report bugs faster too. I actually have a couple of users that do that now, and it helps a lot. They know who they are, and if they watch this video, they're gonna smile, because sometimes they drive me crazy, because like, they'll somehow manage to find stuff in obscure places. Like, they'll be running old content, like Firelands or something, and I'd be like, I found a timer that was like 0.1 off in Firelands, and I'll just be like, oh, it's Firelands, it's really not that important right now, but okay. Bug's a bug, I'll fix it. But I always encourage people to report bugs because I want them fixed, and I want them fixed sooner the better. But yeah, the TLDR of this video, there should be a lot less bugs going in the war within. I pride myself in the analyst work, but now I want to pride myself way more on the code quality with all the tools that have been gone to the back end, especially the ability to test fights without pulling the boss. So I'll be able to catch these bugs faster than ever. But I'm not going to say I'm going to catch them all. You know, I'm not a Pokemon master. But there it is. That's some of the tooling that goes into DBM, and I hope this was informative. And I'll see you in the next one.